Yo, what is up? My name is Nat Bartucki, and today I'm here to talk about the music of the 60s. And if I could sum it up in one word, that word would be innovation. And I know I'm getting into full video essay mode over here, but the explosion of youth culture pushed bands like the Beatles and the Beach Boys into the spotlight and gave them the resources to experiment with new technology like multi-track recordings, tape splicing, and stereo mixing. This led to the creation of psychedelic music, which was adopted around the world by musicians like Jimi Hendrix and scenes like Brazil's Tropicalia movement. Experimental rock bands like the Velvet Underground were also wildly influential and paved the way for many genres to come. Of course, I can't forget to mention the incredible jazz scene with artists like John Coltrane and Charles Mingus, who pushed the genre to its wildest heights. However, I'm honestly not the biggest fan of 60s music. Like anything new, it took a while for people to grow into the 60s innovations, and as a result, a lot of the era's music sounds very rough around the edges. The lyrics of the 60s also tended to be a lot less introspective, with a lot of surface-level social critiques like, war might actually be bad, or, guys, maybe we should just try loving each other a little bit more. Very characteristic of the hippie movement, which was basically just a bunch of rich kids pretending to be progressive. And this stuff is made even more cliche by the fact that so many people were forcing rhymes. Like it's like everyone was allergic to anything that didn't rhyme. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of blues rock, which it took pretty much half of the decade for bands to grow out of. However, because the 60s was so exploratory and so inventive, it also produced a lot of perfect songs. And that brings me to what I'm doing here, ranking my top 25 songs of the 60s. Of course, I'm limiting myself to one song per album for any sort of feasibility and any sort of variety. Like, I don't want the ranking to be filled with just one artist. That's really boring. Now, starting off the list at number 25, we have the Beach Boys' iconic Good Vibrations. And before you come at me for this heretically low placement, you've got to understand, 25 is not a lot. And there are so many candidates each song had to beat to even make it on this list. It's impossible to understate just how ambitious this song is. The harmonies are as gorgeous as they are complex. The arrangements are as strange as they are fitting. But despite that ambition, Good Vibrations never trades off its catchiness or accessibility. And it wouldn't be such an iconic and popular song otherwise. However, a lot of the sections end up feeling a bit disjointed, and the recording quality is a bit rough, but still, this song is insanely impressive, and I think it's a perfect way to start out this list. One place higher though, at number 24, we have Pharoah Sanders' The Creator Has a Master Plan. And this is one of the best jazz songs ever, and one of the lushest ones at that. If Earth was invaded by aliens who really wanted to know what a lush song was, I would jump into battle. I'd be like, stop! And I'd like slowly walk my CD player over to the alien queen, and then I'd just play the song, and the aliens would be so taken aback. The alien queen would probably fall in love with me, and I could become like co-ruler of the universe. Just saying. The chance of this happening is not zero, so it could happen. But the alien queen, she'd also be completely awestruck by the performances here. Pharoah Sanders is such an incredible saxophonist. You only need to listen to those first 2 minutes to hear just how passionate and cathartic his playing can be. And the singer, Leon Thomas, is also so crazy here. Like, at first I thought there were two vocalists. He sings this deep, soulful melody during the first half before switching into this shrill yodel, which, you definitely don't hear a lot of yodeling in jazz, but it fits incredibly well here. And with such a massive runtime, it's impressive that this song remains so engaging for most of it. And I say most of it because the chaos section, it's such a slog to sit through, and it undermines the piece's mood. But still, even though Sanders would go on to make better music in the future, this one's placement on the list is still very much well-deserved. But next up, we have another jazz banger with John Coltrane's My Favorite Things. Undeniably one of Coltrane's most popular, most iconic songs. He transforms a simple show tune into a sprawling jazz masterpiece through the power of arrangement and improvisation. Each member of his quartet is on their A game here and play so tightly together. Obviously, Coltrane is a fantastic saxophonist, and he shows that here through playing that I can only describe as majestic. Either majestic like a bird, gliding harmoniously above the band, or majestic in a more chaotic, dissonant way, completely overpowering the band. However, it's undeniably McCoy Tyner who was the real MVP here. His sprawling syncopated piano chords give the song this sense of grandeur, and his solo at 2 minutes is absolutely beautiful and definitely among the greatest piano solos ever. Like, oh my god, those cascading arpeggios, the way it just plays off the rest of the band, it's just perfect. However, spoilers, I don't think this is Coltrane at his best. And if you want to try guessing what song is later on this list, you can do so right here. No cheating, don't cheat guys, and you'll win a free prize. Up next though, at number 22 is The Zombies' Care of Cell 44, and it's almost the complete opposite to the previous jazz epics, which were lengthy and sprawling. This one, on the other hand, is just a perfect pop song. It's so intensely bright and cheery. However, unlike a lot of songs that try to evoke a similar positivity, this one doesn't feel forced or overbearing at all. Instead, it captures that intense rush of euphoria, a feeling that is so universally relatable and natural, not to mention that melody is just so fun to belt out, with those explosive harmonies in the background helping so much as well. It's also awesome how the song manages to avoid the pitfalls of so much 60s psychedelia. The production is so crisp and full, and the lyrics definitely aren't cliched either. It's just such a joy to listen to. But that's enough happiness for now, because at number 21, we have the Beatles with For No One. And this might seem like an unexpected pick for Revolver, an album with so many iconic songs on it. For No One isn't exactly innovative like Eleanor Rigby or Tomorrow Never Knows. However, it does stand apart from so many Beatles songs because of its emotional maturity, which is especially rare to find in breakup songs around this era. There's no trace of drama or hyperbole in the lyrics, just a blunt "she doesn't love you anymore." I'm just gonna read the lines. She says that long ago she knew someone, but now he's gone, she doesn't need him. Or the chorus, and in her eyes you see nothing, no sign of love behind the tears. With that lyricism and resigned Baroque instrumentation, it's a song that's just as pertinent today as it was 60 years ago when it was written. At number 20, we're going back to jazz with Charles Mingus's Moanin'. However, before I talk about this, I do have a bit of a warning. Listening to this song in public might just be a bad idea because the stank face this song causes is completely unavoidable. So if you're in any sort of sensitive situation, like a wedding or a birthday, maybe don't listen to the song because you don't want people to think that they smell bad, right? Sorry, that's a really bad joke. But anyways, this really is one of the biggest bangers in jazz. From the moment the baritone sax enters with that nasty bass line, you already know you're in for a ride. And I just love the sections where multiple soloists are going at it at the same time, and nobody's afraid to overlap with each other. However, the band still knows when to pull back and let someone else take the stage, which makes it hit a lot harder than if the band was at 100% the entire time. At number 19, we get in a little Canadian with it, with Neil Young's Down by the River. And dude, I love melancholic music, like seriously, dude. Anyways, I would not be the first person to praise Neil Young's use of guitar tone, but he really does it so well here. His tone is so mellow and raw at the same time, it almost feels proto-slowcore, and I much prefer it over the 60s general focus on guitar solos. Neil's thin, sort of whiny voice is also perfect for delivering the song's poignant melodies. It feels so much more authentic than if his voice was more conventionally good. However, I do think a bit too much of the song is taken up by a kind of aimless guitar solo. Like, there's this stretch where it literally just repeats one note over and over and over again. And as a result, I don't really revisit the song as often as I'd like. Plus, Neil Young definitely has better songs down the line. You know who doesn't though? That's right, Bob Dylan with my number 18 pick, Like a Rolling Stone. And if you're into music at all, you're probably familiar with this song, because it's one of the most iconic songs ever. Even if he never made anything after this, I feel like the song alone would have cemented Dylan's legacy. And even though I'm a bit hesitant to board the Dylan hype train at times, this song solves a lot of personal gripes that I usually have with his music. For example, his vocal delivery here is a lot more melodic than his usual talk singing style, and I love it. The way he struggles to hit those high notes makes it feel so much more passionate, a lot more emotional, a lot less jaded than his usual style. And although I can't pretend that Dylan's lyrics aren't always great, they do tend to be poetic in a bit of a more impersonal way. You know, like portraits of other people's lives. Mr. Bob hit his toe on a doorknob. But here, there's so much more personal, and it makes it feel poetic in a completely different way. On top of that, the production on the song is just monumental. The way it opens with that lush wall of piano, organ, electric guitar, and resounding drums, it's just perfect. And the song is absolutely iconic for a reason. But you know what's also iconic? Number 17, The House of the Rising Sun by The Animals. Now, I would never do my own research, but this song practically invented the Doors. That combo of electric guitar and organ is one of the only ways it can get me to fully enjoy bluesy music. I also love how gothic this song sounds, with its dark, old-timey aesthetic. It feels very Nick Cave, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of goth rock bands ended up taking inspiration from the song, which feels so strange to say about something so quintessentially 60s. However, the best part of the song is absolutely the way it builds up, getting louder and faster until it feels like the mix is bursting at the seams, and Eric Burdon's vocal performance is absolutely amazing, and I love the way it borders on a scream at times. You know, and it's pretty heavy considering the year it was released. But speaking of ahead of its time, we've gotta talk about the Velvet Underground with their song at 16th place, All Tomorrow's Parties. And maybe it's not the obvious pick from the album, but I have such a personal connection with the song. I downloaded it on an MP3 player when I went to summer camp. I was like 12 years old, and I listened to it pretty much every night. It captures this uniquely vague and nostalgic trance, with that detuned piano drone and the lyrics that feel exactly like a nursery rhyme. Even the obvious tape splicing of the song only helps to build its liminal atmosphere. And you know your earliest memories? The ones you had when you were 4 or 5 years old? How they feel half-formed and almost unreal? That's the kind of feeling this song gives me. It's experimental, certainly, but it's still comforting and warm and beautiful. But you know what Velvet Underground song I definitely can't say that about? Sister Ray at 15th place. If you thought the previous song was ahead of its time, this one makes it look like the Stone Age in comparison. It's hard to believe the song was even made in the 60s. It's proto-punk, proto-noise rock, proto-no-wave, proto-everything. It's crazy. It feels like the embodiment of a maxed dial. It already kicks off with one of the nastiest organ riffs ever, and yet it only gets noisier from there. The only thing that even carries the groove is Moe Tucker's machine-like drumming, which chugs along even as all of the other instruments descend into chaos. The lyrics are insanely provocative as well. painting a frenzied picture of a drug-fueled gay orgy nightmare. And it's so chaotic, and it's the perfect way to cap off the Velvet's most unbridled album. I just love it so much. And at number 14, we have a slightly less chaotic closer, Cinnamon by Nina Simone. Considered by me and many others to be her crowning achievement, this song transforms a Christian spiritual into this 10-minute epic, bringing the song's story to life with Nina Simone's voice, which is so powerful as she just belts out those lyrics, scoring their desperation with frantic piano, skittering hi-hats, and rushed electric guitar. However, what really makes this song shine is its second half. Simone's staccato piano solo is just fantastic, with those rhythmic handclaps as the perfect backing. And then the song just builds from there, like the swelling of the sea. The final moment of the song, it's just incredible. As if holding back the waves, Nina Simone belts out this overwhelming vocal cadenza before letting all of the instrumentation crash down like a biblical flood. And she does this all while only using traditional rhythm and blues instruments. Only 5 musicians, yet somehow they build such a massive, massive sound. But speaking of a massive sound, at number 13, we have King Crimson's Epitaph. It's rare that a song this melodramatic ends up so high in my favorites, because I'm usually a hater of overly theatrical music. But to me, the level of melodrama here is just perfect. It's emotionally potent without being overbearing, and a big part of that is how the song uses dynamics, quieting down one moment before bursting into the climax the next, like the chorus for example. But without a great singer, those moments would still definitely fall flat, and prog isn't exactly known for its amazing singers. However, Greg Lake is anything but a poor singer and is such a big part of what makes this album work. His voice is tender during those quiet moments, but during those louder moments, he sings with so much passion, and he completely sells the melodrama of this piece. The best part of the song, though, has to be that immense outro. It feels almost apocalyptic, with those blaring mellotrons and thunderous timpanis. Absolute cinema, as the film bros say, and I mean that literally. It sounds very cinematic. But moving on to number 12, we have Glen Campbell's Wichita Lineman. If you think that you hate country, this song is probably the best pick to change your mind. It's one of the most heartbreakingly gorgeous love songs ever. It feels like the audio equivalent of a Sunset Drive. The wind blowing through your hair, your arms outstretched through the window. It's so beautiful. And not only is the melody itself incredible, but the lyrics are so tender and so warm. The line, "And I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time," is so simple, yet it's so poignant, and I think about it so often. On top of that, the arrangements are just magical. The country instrumentation is still there, but it's accompanied by wistful, soaring strings and a powerful brass section. And that outro is also just otherworldly, with that glistening audio effect that I really just can't place down, and that gorgeous string melody. It's such a beautiful way to end off this incredible song. And another song with incredible arrangements, we have number 11, Riverman by Nick Drake. And it feels like a calm autumn stroll in the British countryside, listening to the birds sing, the trickling of a nearby stream. It really just feels like you're in that melancholic beauty of nature. Nick Drake's voice complements the song perfectly. It's so soft, it's so beautiful, and it puts emphasis on that strange but beautiful chord progression and meandering 5/4 tempo. However, as I said, the string arrangements are the main reason why the song places so high on this list. They're not overbearing or cheesy at all. Instead, they give off this almost modern classical vibe. The way they straddle the line between dissonance and harmony is just brilliant. One moment they're soaring beautifully, cathartically, and the next they're crawling under your skin, building this tension. It's really just amazing. But entering the top 10, we have the opposite of that soft song, John Coltrane's Olé. And if you correctly guessed this song, congrats, because you're getting 5 whole Bartucci points. Make sure to keep track of the Bartucci points, because you can exchange them eventually. But really, this captures the full force of Coltrane's creative mastery, staying completely captivating for its entire 18-minute runtime. And it bursts at the seams with the creativity of every musician here, ramping up and up and up, with each subsequent solo building this tantalizing suspense. Now, the first flute solo is really cool. It's not a super common instrument in jazz, and especially not in such a suspenseful song. Hubbard's burst-like trumpet solo continues building that tension, keeps you on your toes waiting for that next blast of noise. And of course, you can't forget McCoy Tyner and his piano, which is just as brilliant on the song as it was on My Favorite Things, and it interplays so well with the rest of the backing band. However, that bass duet, 11 minutes in, is where the song gets elevated to just another level. The solo starts off with the bassists bowing in this languid, funeralistic way, before they both diverge into simultaneous experimentation. One of the bassists makes their instrument sound like a motorcycle engine revving, and the other continues bowing with this feedback, like screechy tone. It's genuinely mind-boggling. Then, during the peak of that duet, that's where Coltrane finally decides to come in after being absent for most of the song, and he finishes it off with one of his most passionate solos. God, it's such an incredible song. But there are somehow 9 more songs on this list? What the helly? What could even be better? Oh, right, number 9, Walk On By Isaac Hayes. This is probably the most transformative cover on this list. It turns a simple pop song into this 12-minute progressive soul masterpiece. And it might be a weird description, but the song is like smoke in musical form. It's sensual like cigarette smoke, but intense like smoke from a wildfire. Just listen to that smoldering electric guitar in the verse, and Isaac Hayes' deep, fiery voice. And keeping with the pattern, this is another song on this list with fantastic orchestral arrangements. It makes the song sound even more cinematic, with that added dramatic flair, and it wastes no time showing them off either, with the intro just being explosive and one of the best parts of the entire song. And the second half is just this powerful extended jam, which sees all of the orchestration, all of the arrangements, they all come in, and they just make it sound so massive. But next, we sadly have the last jazz song on this list at number 8 with Duet Solo Dancers by Charles Mingus. More than any other Mingus song, this one has such a strong, evocative power. Paints this vivid picture of a city night. On the surface, it's glamorous, with those neon lights and towering buildings, but underneath, it's grimy, and it's violent, and it's cruel. The surface level glamour is represented perfectly by the song's bookend sections. It's so velvety and smooth, with lush sax harmonies and gliding piano that just sounds incredible. It reminds me a lot of the Taxi Driver theme. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the composer was influenced by this. However, that initial facade makes way for the chaotic romp of the middle section, with boisterous tubas, shrill, blaring trumpets, and a tempo that continually grows and grows and grows in speed. I talked previously about Mingus's balance of chaos and order, but this song is such a clear demonstration of it. I mean, like, one section is order and harmony, while the other is just chaotic and dissonant. And, well, this easily deserves its placement on what I'd consider to be the greatest jazz album ever. And at number 7, we have Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower. And my hyperbolic ass has been itching to say something this entire time, but finally I can say it and I can have it be true. This is the greatest cover of the 60s, taking Bob Dylan's already incredible song and making it even better with an absolutely insane performance. And I don't know if anyone has ever said this, but this Hendrix guy is pretty darn good at guitar. And this song is the perfect canvas for him to show off his skills. Now, I'm not someone who usually cares that much about guitar solos, but that one at 2 minutes and 33 is one of those unforgettable moments in music. Like, it's just perfect. However, despite the constant praise around Hendrix's guitar skills, not enough people recognize that he's one of the best vocalists of the 60s. His voice is just so powerful, and the way he belts out Dylan's lyrics just oozes passion. It gives them so much life. And finally, the drumming on the song deserves so much credit. That intro fill alone is a huge part of why the song is so iconic, and the way Mitchell supports solos with this flurry of drumming is a huge reason why they shine so much. Even as someone who's not a fan of this sort of bluesy hard rock, this song is completely undeniable. But moving on to another iconic song, at number 6 we have Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles. And this is what I've always considered to be the Beatles' equivalent to Good Vibrations, with that same sense of ambition and experimentation. However, it also feels like an improvement in a lot of ways. I mean, Strawberry Fields is so much more cohesive, and the production is somehow even more varied, with nostalgic mellotron, those deep chugging cellos, and trippy tape-sliced drum grooves. And unlike the rough recording quality of Good Vibrations, this song still sounds fantastic to this day. Even the lyrics here are fantastic. They're so trippy and poetic, but they still remain emotionally moving somehow. And that leads me to my main point, which is kind of just pointing out how this song is so complex, it's so awe-inspiring, yet it's still equally beautiful and comforting. Next, though, we have a song that is much more simple at number 5, California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas. And it's not every day that you come across a pop song that sounds this desperate and this anguished. I mean, it uses the cliches of sunshine pop brilliantly to capture the sense of escapism and futility. It's like wishing for that idealized portrait of American life, yet it twists those vocal harmonies, it twists those cliches in such a haunting way. And of course, a big part of that is also the lead vocals. It sounds like he's pleading with those lyrics, and it fits so well with that amazing, desperate melody. It's surprising just how many people overlook the dark overtones of the song, though. But to be fair, I would chalk it up to just how catchy and how accessible the melody is here, though. And that's why it's just so high on this list. At number 4, we have another Beatles song, and I'm not going to go against the grain here and say that their best song isn't A Day in the Life. It's a closing song so perfect that it single-handedly carried Sgt. Pepper's reputation for the last 6 decades, which honestly is fair enough, because there are few songs that evoke a sense of finality as powerfully as this one does. It really could be the end credits of life itself, right? The clapping at the beginning makes it feel like the end of a performance. The curtain call and the vignette-like lyrics feel like past memories. Not to mention, that first verse alone is just so tragically poetic. And the structure of the song is super cool as well, with those tense orchestral sections and Paul's jaunty verse, which feels like it should be out of place, but it really isn't. It really doesn't feel out of place. And then the way the song ends is just iconic. It's impossible not to talk about that massive final chord, which puts the song to rest perfectly. It's one of those endings where you can't listen to just anything else afterwards. You have to sit in silence for a little bit. Just have to let it settle in your mind. Entering the top 3, we have These Days by Nico. And in contrast to the grandiosity of the previous song, These Days is just so incredibly delicate and tender. I can only really listen to it in complete stillness, otherwise it feels like any sort of turbulence will just destroy the atmosphere like a dandelion in the wind. But when I can listen to it, the lyrics have this uncanny ability to be relatable no matter where in life you are. They're so introspective and poetic, but they're simple enough to be evocative. And there are so many examples that I could give, but I'm just going to read the line. These days, I seem to think a lot about the things that I forgot to do, and all the times I had a chance to, right? If you can't, relate to that sentiment, I don't believe you, right? Like, it's such a universal feeling, and Nico's deep voice also complements the lyrics' regretful tone so well. John Cale's arrangements are also just spectacular here. Those strings add so much lushness and warmth to a song that would otherwise feel lacking in detail. Sure, Nico famously disliked them, but since when do we care about Nico's opinion? But in second place, we have Tim Buckley's Once I Was, and pretty much the entire list up to this point was incredibly close, with my placements changing so often during its creation. However, this song is somehow such a massive leap in quality, and that feels just crazy to say, especially with the list as condensed as this one is. However, this song really does deserve it. I mean, it's absolutely devastating. It's leagues more tragic than anything else here. It's impossible for me to even listen to this song without getting a lump in my throat. With the strums of acoustic guitar and desolate harmonica, it feels like, missing someone that you truly loved with all of your heart and that you know that you'll never be able to see again. I find myself searching through the ashes of our ruin for the days when we smiled and the hours that ran wild, with the magic of our eyes and the silence of our words. And sometimes I wonder, just for a while, will you ever remember me? And the way Tim just belts this section of the lyrics out is just so cathartic as well. I mean, there isn't much else that feels quite as powerful as this, but if it's so much better than the rest of the list, what could possibly be number 1? Oh, yeah, God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, of course. Of course. Now, it's a bit fitting that the Beach Boys both started and ended this list, which I honestly swear was not on purpose. How am I not going to put one of the most gorgeous love songs ever at number 1? How? It really just does capture that painful longing for love and the fragility that comes with it. The lyrics are just as romantic as they are sad. Most love songs wouldn't have a verse like, if you should ever leave me, the life would still go on, believe me. The world could show nothing to me, so what good would living do me? Right? Like, it almost borders on suicidal. But you know what makes the song shine even more? Of course, it would be the incredible arrangements. Like, it's impossible to mention any song from Pet Sounds without talking about them. I mean, it evokes that lushness of love and sound with those wistful French horns, airy flutes, and my favorite instrument, accordion. And yes, this is me. I love accordion. And that outro though, I mean, it's, oh my god, it's just incredible in every single way. There's just no words to express it, right? The gorgeous layers of vocal harmonies, those massive percussion hits, it's so climactic, and even though it's so short, it's such a fleeting moment, I could just listen to it forever, you know? And even though this song was written more than 60 years ago, it's still just as evocative and true today as it was back then. It's easily the best song of the 60s. But that's it. That's the list. And you gotta keep in mind, this is all just my opinion. By the way, chat, opinion's just slang for opinion. So, yeah, I'm just using slang here. So if you completely disagreed with all of my picks, I think you should make your own video. Also, yes, I did make this entire video in PowerPoint. And I'm gonna plug it right here. You guys get good visuals, and I don't have to spend months editing. Even though I kind of did still. I mean, I still spent 30 hours on the slideshow alone. But hey, it's better. It's an improvement. But anyways, goodbye, Nya.